Hey friends, Dean here. Before we get you on to your episode, I want to take a moment to invite you to our next virtual online trivia night. Wednesday, May 13th at 8 p.m. Join us either on our Facebook group or on our YouTube page for 3 rounds of fun trivia, music questions, movie questions, general knowledge questions. It'll be a fun time and a chance to win some prizes and have just a good relaxing night of some trivia at home. You don't even have to go out for it. So don't forget, Wednesday, March 13th at 8 p.m. Join us on our Facebook group or YouTube for 3 rounds of fun virtual online trivia. We'll see you there. 2 voices that come together as one. When it works, it's magic. In this episode, we are choosing our top 5 duets. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff, and Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. If you're new and checking us out for the first time, welcome aboard. Glad to see you. If you are a returning listener, welcome as well. We have missed you. We always miss you, don't we, Eric?
We certainly do.
We always do. And
we do.
Thank you for your support. Much appreciated. You can check us out on social media, on Facebook and on Instagram at 3324 Podcast. We do a lot of posting there, a lot of sharing, a lot of conversation. So if you want some more than just the listening experience, head on over to social media. We will be there waiting. I'm going to be sitting in the throne like Conan at the end of Conan the Barbarian, just waiting.
Bated breath. Beard's going to grow.
Like old man, like old Conan. I'll just be sitting waiting in the dark.
Okay. With his robes.
That's it. Just like pondering with that pondering look on my face,
twisting the sword back and forth,
waiting for the notification bell to go off that someone posted a comment or someone liked.
Yeah.
So we appreciate it. Again, thank you as always for joining us. I'm Dean and we're here with Eric, and we are doing one of our top 5 today. Yep. And these are always fun. We have a blast with them. And this is our top 5 duets.
Mm-hmm.
So people that came together, collabs as they call them now. Collabs.
Yes.
So
and there's plenty of them. I chose
duets. Duets does sound old timey, and it does sound like from the 40s and that kind of thing. But we've got some ground rules. But after the ground rules, it's anything goes.
Mm-hmm.
So okay. Let's do the ground rules, because we always need that thing to keep us in line. Otherwise, This show can quickly go off the rails. More so for me. Eric is the calming influence. I am the manic. Anyway, so the rules are, first, if you've never heard us, if you've never heard one of our top 5s, also, we do not divulge what our lists are. So that's right. One of the most fun things and the most genuine reactions is, I do not know what Eric picked. He does not know what I picked. And then we, at the end, we try and figure out if we might have guessed one. But we have these rules. We need parameters. This way it tests our mettle. It tests us and makes sure that we give you the best content. So rule number 1, cannot be 2 members of the same group.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, like Fleetwood Mac, if there was like a Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks duet, that's out because they're in the same group. So that's not really a duet per se.
Right.
It must be a vocal performance. So it's got to be singing.
Mm-hmm.
And then each has to sing at least one verse. So those aren't horrible ground rules.
No.
After that, it could be guy, gal, 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 guy, whatever it is, whatever, and from wherever, that's the only parameters we put.
So no animals, no dogs, cats, or anything like that.
Didn't think about that. The singing dogs that do jingle bells could have been in the running. Maybe we'll save that for the holiday.
Or the chipmunks.
Chipmunks. That's a group though.
Yeah.
See? Got that rule kicking in. How did you have difficulty choosing?
No, actually this was fun. You know me, I tried to do one. I have to spread it out. I can't have too many from the same decade. I'm always trying, doing
Spoiler alert, I have a cluster.
I did actually, my first list I started with, it had maybe 4 out of the 5 were from the 80s.
Yeah.
And I was like, I gotta dig deeper with this. So I did. And I got some good choices here. One you might take, I don't know if it's breaking the parameters of our rules here.
Well, but, we will leave it to the listeners in the comments.
I'll explain as we go.
All right. Oh boy, if there's an explanation,
I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't know if it's that big of a deal, but you might take issue with it because it's
all right. Well, but you know what? I will keep silent, and we will let the listeners decide. So when we get to this, whatever this song is and whatever rule has already, I can tell, has been broken.
Yeah.
We'll let the listeners decide. I don't
think it's broken. I don't think it's broken because I think there's just enough there.
Oh boy,
to work with. Okay.
Jeez. All right. I think I can guess one of yours, maybe 2.
Okay.
But I think 1.
Yeah, I think I would probably say the same for you.
I mean, there's a lot. It's it's funny when I was doing my research and kind of a couple that just rolled off that I really liked. And then a couple I had to kind of reflect on and think about stuff I may have forgotten about.
Yeah.
Because obviously you can probably roll off 4 to 5 easily, but are they your favorites? Or are there ones that you may have forgotten about? So that was for me, the list evolved. One went on, one came off, another one went back on. It was hot and heavy until before we recorded.
Yeah, me too. So I had my number 1 spot, and I thought, you know what, could this be the undisputed duet of all time?
Oh boy!
But then something like clicked, and I was like, oh my God, wait a minute.
Uh-oh.
And I switched it out at the last minute.
Okay.
So I don't know.
As always, my number 1 is going to be my number 1.
Yeah.
Are you committing?
I'm committing
the
to
feedback
that.
We always get, again, if you've never listened to a top 5, the eternal struggle, like Jedi versus Sith, has been to get Eric to actually
commit to.
Yeah, it's just not some stuff in a list. It is number 1, and we're getting him there. He on our top 5 TV shows was a breakthrough. It was a psychological breakthrough.
It was.
And
I actually rated them. I did. And
he made a stand.
Yeah, I made a stand. This one, I think I'm pretty good with this one as well.
Okay. I'm good with mine too. I did move some, half the fun too is kind of putting them in the order.
That's
like,
right.
well, what is my favorite? And
this one was
where do the other ones fit?
Yep. This one was definitely like that for me. Yeah.
Number 1 was always number 1. And then it's interesting. It's fun to kind of put the other ones.
That's right.
In there and say, well, how do they slide into this list? So enough idle chatter.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to get going with it. So these are the top 5 duets. And Eric will kick us off with his number 5.
Okay. My number 5, this song, again, I kind of based it on.
So wait, hang on. This is the one already?
This is the one.
Okay. So I'm going to, if I can, remain silent and non-judgmental. I squeezed it in there only because it's one of the top songs that I've, in my experience of going to karaoke. Okay. It's one of the top songs that people do from my own personal experience. Now the song itself, the other person does not exactly, he sings enough on the song, but it's not a verse per se. Okay. So, that's the rule I guess I'm breaking here. he has built this up, and now I am waiting. Okay. Lay it on us.
My number 5 is Bring Me to Life, Amy Lee of Evanescence, and a gentleman by the name of Paul McCoy. Now, he is not credited on this record. It's from their album Fallen. Okay. And he's from a group called 12 Stones. Now,
good choice.
Again, this guy, I think the vocals are there. There's enough there to really make a stand here and to say, yeah, this could be a duet. It's not, she sings most of the verses. He does the bridge. he does the bridge, and there's that sort of that growl that he does, and it's great. And I've seen people do this song. Kelly's actually, my wife has actually done it with a person that I used to work with, and we had such a blast listening to that. That was great. So there's a lot of like fond memories for me with this one, but I absolutely love this song. Always have. I'm always cranking up the volume with it.
Mm-hmm. It's a great choice.
It gives me chills every time. Her voice, her vocal.
Oh yeah, Amy Lee can rip. She can
absolutely amazing. So yeah, that's this is my number 5. So I had to have something recent. Well, not recent. This is what, 2003. This came out.
Is that your most recent?
Yeah, it's my most.
Well, you know what? I've got you beat then. I ain't such an old man. But yeah, Amy Lee can absolutely belt. So that's a great one.
So did I break the rule or not? What do you got to say? Yes, no. I'm gonna
say no. You did not break the rule. Only because when it's kind of like a call and response, that part.
Yes.
Where she sings something and he sings a different line each time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like he's just singing the same thing over and over again. So, all right.
You'll allow it. You're okay with it?
Entry has been granted.
Okay, good.
You will go on to number 4
because it's just a great song. So.
It is absolutely great choice.
Yep.
Great choice. Would not have guessed that one. Okay, my number 5 is going back to younger days, AM radio, and on AM radio you heard everything. You heard pop, you heard rock, you heard soul, you heard country, you heard TV themes. I was really exposed to a lot of different types of music before I got into what I got into just from AM radio. I mean, it was just so diverse, so many different things on there. And one of the ones that I kind of remembered when I was making the list, I'm like, oh man, such a great duet. It kind of calls back to our covers a little bit, because my number 5 is the Closer I Get to You with Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway.
Nice. Very nice.
From 1977, hit number 2. You're not going to go wrong with Roberta Flack. First of all, she has just the smoothest vocal, in control, just perfect. I don't think she's ever sung a wrong note, Roberta Flack, honestly. So so having her in there, when they were recording this song, it was originally written as just a solo. Then her manager kind of came in and said, you know what, let's kind of reconfigure this. We'll get Donny Hathaway. And now unfortunately, Donny Hathaway had a lot of problems around this time, and he passed away not too long after he committed suicide. They were not able to actually, fun fact or interesting fact, they did not record this at the same time because he was so debilitated he couldn't leave where he was. So she recorded it, which is not uncommon nowadays, and it wasn't, it might have been a little bit more of a bigger thing back then, but she recorded her vocals, and then they got all the tapes over and the recordings, and he recorded his. But if you listen, if you listen with headphones to Roberta Flack's her verses, there's just like this swirling synthesizer in the back, and it's just and then when he sings, it's more orchestrated. So there's a lot of counterpoints to it. Just a really great song, great vocal, and reminds me of when I was a kid. All those years ago. The
miracle of recording too. It's like piecing all that together.
Yeah, and it sounds just so lush. And like I said, Roberta Flack anchoring it, forget it. You're not going to go wrong.
Yeah, great choice.
Number 5. That was it.
Great choice. Yeah.
Yeah, and it hit number 2 US. I think I said that already.
Oh.
Okay, so number 4, we're rocking and rolling.
My number 4 takes us back all the way to 1960, and I always loved this song as well. I never knew, of course, as a kid, I never knew who actually did it. But it's Brooke Benton and Dinah Washington's "Baby, You've Got What It Takes" from an album called The Two of Us, which I believe is a whole album of duets. I think she might do some like songs herself. I think he does a couple himself. And that was released in July of 1960. So yeah, this song is always catchy, very sort of light, breezy, bluesy, But, I love Brooke Benton. I always loved his voice. Rainy Night in Georgia is one of my favorite songs of all time. I love that low timbre he's got
Keeps
to his
raining
voice.
all over the world.
Yeah, that's right. Raining, 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 raining. Yeah. And Dinah Washington, she's got that quality to her voice too, where she's very, very bluesy and she can be, she actually sounds a lot like Billie Holiday. It reminds me too. So, so that song, I've always heard it. My parents always played it. I think my grandfather loved that song of all people.
Oh.
So he was a big fan of Brooke Benton, people like Lou Rawls. He really liked those low singers.
Yeah, Lou Rawls had some deep pipes too.
So needless to say, this song, I heard it a lot as a kid. And it didn't dawn on me. This came late in the game. Like, this was like, oh my God, I got to put this on there, and it just clicked in my head. So
one of those ahas.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's great. The influence of your parents, you think at the time it's not what you're into or not interested in, and it's kind of there in the background. And then as you get older, you kind of revisit and say, well, what was that anyway?
This stuff was great. This stuff was absolutely great. I'm not one of those people that are like, oh, that's your stuff was horrible.
Yeah.
Of course you don't like everything, but big band, that kind of all this jazz that they listened to back in the day. My grandmother was a big Frank Sinatra fan, all this kind of stuff was playing in my house, and I loved it. I grew up with it. So there it is. Yeah. 1960, baby, you've got what it takes.
Number 4.
Yes, my number 4.
My number 4 continues that I said there was a cluster. And the cluster continues. Fast forward just a few years, and well, let me set the scene. For most kids, you're in middle school, and back in my day, they used to have middle school dances, and guys would stand on one side of the room with their hands in their pockets, and the girls would stand on the other, and guys would try and get enough gumption to ask somebody or nerve to ask somebody to dance. I was never one of those. I was always just deathly afraid. Never asked anybody to dance. I was sitting there waiting, thinking somebody was going to come up to me. And the song Yes, I'm Ready by Terry DeSario and KC.
Nice.
From 1979, which hit number 2, was
Very nice.
Right smack in the middle of those middle school dances. That kind of a song, innocent, poppy love song, produced by KC. So if you don't know who KC is from KC and the Sunshine Band. Real name is Harry Wayne Casey. Hitmaker bar none in the 70s. With KC and the Sunshine Band, pretty much hitting the charts seemingly at will with what he was doing.
Yeah.
And then Terry DeSario comes out with this album in 1979, and he produces the whole thing too. So he produced it for her as well. And this was actually originally a song by Barbara Mason from the 60s, and it was not a duet. It was just a straight up. It was just a straight up song, and they adapted it to to that whole male female boy girl romance type thing. Are you ready? Yes, I'm ready. And her vocals just has like that really innocent sound to it. And then when KC comes in at the time, KC he has an unmistakable voice. He really does.
Yeah.
So when he kind of comes in, you kind of know what you're getting, and it's just like kind of pure pop perfection. Yes, I'm ready. Number 2 on the charts. So it was
another number 2, huh?
That it did
in a row.
Well.
Yeah.
And then Terry DeSario just kind of faded into the moonlight. She was literally, this was like a one-hit wonder for her. She really didn't do much afterwards, unfortunately. Yeah. A lot of times, if you look on, there's a lot of videos of this song on YouTube from when they did American Bandstand. Kind of looked a little bit like Sheena Easton.
Yes.
Resembled.
Yeah. I remember the song being just a tad, risque, a bit sexy, like when you're a kid, especially you're thinking about, your first kiss or your first, fantasizing about that.
Yes, I'm ready.
Yes, exactly. So, but yeah, it's a great choice. Yeah. Excellent.
So yeah, that's my 70s cluster, and it may or may not continue. I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there.
Okay. All right. My
number three. We are rolling through this.
Yes.
We are rolling through these.
Okay, this one is a favorite of mine because I used to do it at karaoke all the time. Especially we went to this little dive in Tampa called Bob and Julie's, and Julie, who was one of the owners, used to sing this with me, and it's "Leather and Lace" by Stevie Nicks and Don Henley.
There you go.
And this was before I even knew that I could sing. I worked up the nerve to do this, and I have to say I don't like to pat myself on the back, but I did it. I was like, wow. People were like, you sounded just like Don Henley on that song.
Wow.
And she was like, every time we'd come in, she'd want to do the song with me. So it's a sentimental favorite of mine, but I love the song. I almost put Stop Dragging My Heart Around, and both songs are from the same album, Belladonna, which was released in July of 81, her first solo record.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of think, with the Tom Petty song, it's kind of like the Fleetwood Mac thing, where she was such a big fan of the Heartbreakers that I almost feel like, and because several members of the band played on the record, that duet didn't quite. Don Henley, it's just a one-off, right? So he's just like the guest star. Like Tom Petty's and the Heartbreakers' presence is all over that album. So I felt like it was part of the album. So that's why I didn't choose that over Leather and Lace. But yeah, I really like singing this one. It's a great song. Nice. It's timeless. So it's a sentimental favorite of mine. So I had a lot of good times doing this. Was around that time I think that movie Duets came out
with Gwyneth Paltrow.
Huey Lewis.
Lewis was it? Yeah, they had that song Cruising.
It was Karaoke Hustlers.
Yeah, me singing is like Quint dragging his fingernails down the chalkboard in Jaws.
No,
that's
ladies
me.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've heard this man do Mac the Knife, and he did a fabulous job. Fantastic. No, you were great. You were great.
A few beers in.
And this was before I had even had the nerve to get up and sing. Okay. But yeah, he would do.
Some liquid courage always helps.
That's right.
Yeah, the karaoke years. So interesting that I had a feeling that either Leather and Lace or Stop Dragging My Heart. I thought Stop Dragging My Heart Around for sure. I thought that was going to be the one. Because that was on my list, and then it dropped off the list to an honorable mention.
And she went on to do several duets. I think she did. There's the one with Kenny Loggins that she did back in the 70s.
That I thought about that whenever I Call You Friend, because I love that song, and I thought about it. I'm like, she doesn't really. She sings a line or so, and I was kind of like, and I have to penalize her just because she thought she was going to be joining like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So I just had to exclude her from the list for that alone. Just like, oh, I'm going to join. It's like, no, you're not.
Tom Petty's like, no,
you're not.
No girls allowed in this.
Yeah. Like, what do you? It's like you think you're just gonna walk up and just join whatever band you feel like joining.
So
anyway,
so,
well, yeah, and Henley was kind of in between gigs. I mean, the Eagles were had just about broken up.
That's right. I think he just released his first solo record at that point.
Yeah, was that Can't Stand Still?
That's right.
Right. Had Dirty Laundry on it.
Dirty Laundry, yeah. And it was around that same time. So, yeah.
And they were dating.
And they were dating, yes. Stevie gets
she
around.
Everybody.
That's right.
Sorry, it's true.
It's true.
Because she's been around a while, not because, Oh, boy. Well. So that was your number.
That was my number 3.
Yep. Number 3. Oh, yeah. Man. All right. I think I'm going to shock you with this one. I think I'm going to shock you with my number 3.
Bring it on.
And I'm, one half of the duet combo, you might be like, oh yeah, I can get that. But I'm going to advocate for the other half as well. 1984, Almost Paradise by Ann Wilson and Mike Reno from the Footloose soundtrack.
It's a good choice.
Right? I mean, Ann Wilson goes without saying. Rip. That's there. The random element, I think, for most people is Mike Reno. Who is he? And what's he doing on this song? And back then, Mike Reno still is, or whatever was the frontman for Loverboy.
Mm-hmm.
And in 84, they were smack dab in the middle of like their hot streak. They had Working for the Weekend, Hot Girls in Love, Queen of the Broken Hearts. There was so many songs. And Mike Reno has a voice and a half as well. And that's the thing, is he can sing. He kind of came and went, and Loverboy was definitely a thing of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of just flamed out afterwards. But go listen to Mike Reno sing, and he can rip. So he is a formidable partner to Ann Wilson, because like you can't have a slacker with Ann Wilson, because she'll just tear up the song and she'll overpower anybody.
That's right. Yep.
So Mike Reno might be like, oh, who is this guy? But he's the lead singer for Loverboy. Powerhouse in his own right, from the Footloose soundtrack, hit number 7 in the United States. And I believe this was the album, I think we talked about it in a previous episode, that knocked Thriller off of the charts.
Mm-hmm.
Its dominance. And then Footloose kind of bopped in and just kind of scooted Thriller off for a little bit. And the soundtrack to Footloose took over, because that had just so many other amazing songs on it as well. So
this was,
like I said, you get Ann Wilson from Heart, and Heart was kind of in a downturn in 84 too. They were kind of in that kind of reconfiguring state also, where they had kind of dipped off the charts, and then they would resurge with that song Alone and all those great stuff that was kind of later 80s. So she was this kind of kept her in the spotlight. Almost Paradise with Mike Reno. Mike Reno, from Loverboy, he always wore the headbands, the bandanas,
and the red,
yes,
the
red
leather
jacket,
pants, and the
red jacket, or the cutoff T-shirt,
stripe, red. And white
these are all
stripe.
80s. These are tropes of the 80s. If you want to see what the 80s was really like, just look at what Mike Reno wore in any Loverboy video, and you will get a real assessment of what the 80s was like.
Yep.
It wasn't Michael Jackson with the glove. It was more Mike Reno with the headband and the hair and the red shirt, the cutoff shirt, the cutoff T-shirt, and all that kind of stuff. So
that's right. Yep.
The cluster continues. That was 70, 77, 79, and 84.
Well, Footloose was huge in my house. Me and my sister we loved the movie. We'd watch it over and over and over. That soundtrack was always playing. So yeah, that's a great choice. Very great choice. And you're right. Two powerhouse vocals just perfectly matched on that track. So they did those really high pitched, notes that they reach on that song is amazing.
Yeah. So, and her voice is just so clear in that song too.
Yeah.
Usually with Heart, unless they do the real ballady stuff, but when Heart does the rock stuff, sometimes Ann Wilson's voice gets a little lost in it. And this is just the production on this is really nice. She
tends to get a bit shrilly, like when she really gets up and she's really, she's going, she's ripping it. And, the story, typically the song has to be rocking for her to get that way. It's more kind of her. I think it's her way of emulating Robert Plant, I think a little bit.
Did you ever see that video of Heart doing Stairway to Heaven? I think it was the Kennedy Center Honors, and Plant is crying at the end.
Yes, that's right.
He was crying they showed him. It's like him, Page, and John Paul Jones, like in a row. Heart, they brought their A game. They're unabashedly fans of Zeppelin. I mean, they wear their Zeppelin heart on their sleeve. There's no bones about that. So they came ready to play at the Kennedy Center Honors, and the camera kept switching to Plant. And you see like the tear coming out of his eyes, because they just the arrangement and her voice. I mean, she's one of the few people that could hit that song the way it needs to be, not having to do it differently to compensate for lack of vocal talent. Ann Wilson was able to do it as it was, if need be.
Those octaves
and that was relatively recent too. This wasn't like she did it like in the 70s or 80s. She did it like not too long ago.
Right. That's right.
And she tore it up.
Yep.
The Ann Wilson Appreciation Society is in
full swing here.
Gathering has started.
Yeah.
Number 2.
All right. So my number 2. I mentioned this song before in our top 5 bass player.
I knew it.
The episode.
I knew it.
And that is but I cannot keep it off the list because it's one of my favorite songs of the 80s, and from one of my favorite albums of the 80s, that's Don't Give Up, Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush from So. Released May.
I'm sorry. Hang on. I'm sorry. I finally guessed one. I knew this was going to be on here. Go for it.
May of 1986. Absolutely sublime. I just love both of their vocals in this song. It gets even the video I love. They're embracing, they're kind of artsy. Kate Bush has always been sort of
very artsy.
For me, she's the original Tori Amos. I think she's like sort of the prototype for, same kind of thing, same kind of artsy kind of quality. But yeah, I just absolutely love that song. I love this album. I cry. I actually tear up every time I hear it. I don't listen to it a lot. I like to keep it even keel. Every now and again, I'll revisit the album and I'll just put it on. And I just, but this song always gets me every time. So it's sublime, absolutely sublime. It's really the only word that I could come up with to describe it. And of course, you got that great bass from Tony Levin at the end, especially at the end when it kind of fades out. There's that sort of funky bass with the background singers going on, and I just love the way it fades out there. But it's a great song.
Yeah, and that's a pair. That's a match made in heaven, Gabriel and Kate Bush, because they're just so on that esoteric edge. Although Peter Gabriel was on his way back from the outer reaches of that, with his Genesis stuff, he was really the prototype for that kind of weird stuff, and Kate Bush was totally into that as well on her own terms. And to have those two come together, I remember when that song came out, and I remember the video of them, and it's just like they're like slowly turning, and they're just embracing the whole video. If I'm not mistaken,
it's very effective.
Yeah, so you just really really powerful.
Kind of odd. You might think, well, what is this? But when you listen to the song and what it's saying, and it's just it really
and that's the way music videos were back then too. They were pieces. Right. Some of them were pieces of art. I mean, that was the opportunity also to put images to the feeling for the song, not always a performance or not always some weird Phil Collins type story, but just something that was more artsy. And you definitely, with Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush, you were definitely getting that. If you go look at some of Kate Bush's other videos, they're just, some of them are just off the wall.
That's right. It's either her or Laurie Anderson. They're both like the artistes. They're very.
Absolutely.
But Kate Bush is more. She's got the voice. She's got a beautiful voice. She's more sort of theatrical,
running up that hill.
Yeah. It's just she was great. I don't really hear from her that much anymore. But I don't know if she's even still performing, or I don't know. But just if
she is, probably just in England. A lot of times these. Those UK artists are very much beloved in their country, but then if they don't break in the US, but they still have like a vibrant career, over in their home country, and probably what the deal is with Kate Bush, I'm sure.
All right,
what year was that?
That was 1986.
86. All right,
May of 86. So that's two songs from the 80s right there.
All right. Well, I'm going with my number 2. I am going to claim the title of the most recent song. So I'm taking it away from Evanescence, and it is a song that I obsess over just because I love it so much, and it's just I didn't catch it when it first came out. I kind of was aware of it, and then recently, when you go down the YouTube rabbit hole. You look for a video of, how to put batteries in a Walkman. And then before you know it, you're watching a video of like David Lee Roth singing Shine a Little Love by ELO, which he did actually do. If you've never seen that video.
No, I have not.
He sings Shine a Little Love by ELO. Anyway, you end up down this rabbit hole. And I found a live performance of this song in a radio station when artists go to radio stations and they perform live. And I was captivated because it was actually sounded better than the original. And the song I'm talking about is Somebody I Used to Know by Gautier. And and with Kimbra. So Kimbra is a New Zealand singer. Gautier is from Belgium, but via Australia. And he's kind of like one of those auteurs, one-man bands, does everything himself, programming, synth, all that great stuff. And Somebody I Used to Know was really known when it came out in 2011 for a really strange music video of him getting his body getting painted while the song is going on is really crazy. The song itself, it hit number 1 in the US. 13 million copies of the single were sold worldwide. The music video, 1.7 billion with a B, billion views on YouTube. This is a monster song. And the version I like is one he did, I think, for KCRW. If you go look it up on YouTube, it's him in the studio and Kimbra is there. And he's got all his pads and his programming that he does, which is pretty amazing. And his vocal and the arrangement that he does with Kimbra is slightly different at the end. And it's just really, and it's a really good song. It's kind of, you think it's about a guy that kind of was wronged by his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And then the second verse, when Kimbra takes over, she's saying, you're just as, you're pretty much a scumbag. Like it was you, So I really like that. Usually these duets are kind of like, we're on the same page. We love each other, this, that, and the other thing. But, somebody I used to know is really kind of biting because he's biting into her and saying, you treated me really crappy. And then her first line is, now, and I think of all the times you screwed me over. Mm-hmm. Part of me believing it was something that I had done, so he was manipulating her. So it's just really a really biting song, but I like the sparse arrangement. And then her vocals, Kimbra is just a really amazing vocalist.
It's a very honest song.
Yeah.
So it gets, you're right. It's hearing both sides of the story. It's like an argument.
Yeah.
Right. Or a quiet argument, so to speak. So, but
it's like what he would be telling his friends and then what she would be telling her friends. Like they're both, it's not like
he said, she said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's looking at it from one point of view saying, oh,
yeah.
And then she's like, well, it wasn't really like that. Mm-hmm. You really we're not the hero in this.
You're full of crap.
So that
Good
one
choice.
I can listen to that song over and over. That song I'll put on twice in a row if I need to, just because I just love the arrangement.
Wow, it's great. I never would have thought that one. Yeah.
Go TA. See that?
Go TA.
Go TA.
That's your number 2. All right.
That's my number 2. So we are striding towards number 1. I fear we may have the same number 1.
You think?
I don't fear it. I've got a feeling though.
Okay.
But you're gonna lay it on us. You're gonna uncork the number 1.
Okay. This is I feel just by airplay, just by again, people doing it at a karaoke, it could be the undisputed duet of all time.
Oh boy.
There's actually, I don't know. I'm flip-flopping here. But this could be, this could edge it out. And that is from 1977, Bat Outta Hell, Meatloaf, and Ellen Foley's Paradise by the Dashboard Light. I think that is, I have to say that this to me could be the undisputed champ of duets of all time.
Wow.
And it's not even a song that I particularly love.
Yeah,
really. I'm not crazy. I've never been crazy about
my
the song. My
sister-in-law is bats for it. Get it?
But it's always been there. It's always been in the background. It's always in any time there. You see anything to do with guys and girls, hooking up and this kind of thing. And this song is always like the theme song, right? Yep. I mean, that was the intent. And it's effective, and people have done it time and time again. Karaoke. I mean, it's so I would have to say this is it for me. This is this is the number 1.
That's a bold statement. It's a good choice.
And number 1, I did have another, but let's see what you have to say. But
okay. I'll say his name was Robert Paulson. You don't get that? You missed that one.
I missed that one.
Fight Club. That was Meatloaf. Meatloaf was in Fight when he got killed. He goes, in Project Mayhem, you don't have a name, but in death, you have a name. This man's name was Robert Paulson, and they all start saying it.
That's right.
And then I was like, "What are you guys? You guys are crazy! Like, what's going on here?"
Do you want me to blow your mind? I've only seen that movie twice.
You got to see it more than that.
No, I've only seen it twice.
Can't take it.
It's not that I can't take it. That's just the way it is. I've never really gone out of my way to watch it again.
Oh, man.
But yeah.
Absolutely amazing piece of film.
Yeah.
No, that's a great choice. I mean, I kind of thought about that, actually. I thought about Paradise by the Dashboard Light, and I wasn't sure. I'm like, Meatloaf is so overbearing in that song. I was kind of like, almost.
It is. That's why I don't, it's very melodramatic and just sort of, it always reminds me of like Rocky Horror.
Yep. Oh,
in a way too. That's got that kind of, thing, but it's popular. It was huge.
Yeah. And that's the genius of Jim Steinman, who, conceived that whole thing. He just passed away recently, about a month or so ago, maybe 2 months ago.
Fun fact, Ellen Foley, she, if you've ever watched Night Court, she was one of the lawyers on the show.
And the thing about Ellen Foley too is when you watch the video on MTV, that's Carla DeVito, and she's lip syncing Ellen Foley's vocals. She actually everyone knows Carla DeVito as like the girl that was in the video and would tour with Meatloaf, but Carla DeVito did not sing those parts. That was Ellen Foley.
That's right.
But Carla DeVito kind of got like the face was the face of that. When you watch that music video millions of times, it's Carla DeVito.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which kind of weird.
Yeah, it's bizarre,
Right?
But
Number one. Wow.
So yeah, I mean,
Meatloaf,
again,
Bat Out of Hell. That song was everywhere when it came out. I mean, you could not. Good choice. You could not get away from it.
Mm-hmm.
You could not get away from it
as much as we wanted to. it was there.
I think it's one of those one. I think It's kind of like Oh What a Night by Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. Like it's going to be there, and then you kind of go through like love-hate relationships. I'm in, like you kind of after a while get sick of it, but then if you actually sit down and listen to it,
it's brilliant.
Enjoy it more.
It's epic. I mean, that's for lack of a better term. It is an epic song, and it's long, and it goes on. And
I think when you hear it on the radio, it's easy to dismiss it, like, oh, I don't want to deal with that.
But in a social setting too, when people are like really amped up and they're singing along. I mean, those are the moments.
All the women are pointing at their husbands, and
but those are the moments that you like. That's when you get into it. That's when you realize, this song has something. But
absolutely. I'm the guy that's sitting on the sidelines, like shaking his head, like, no,
right?
No,
exactly.
I'm not gonna act that song out. I'm sorry, just not gonna do
it. No.
I'm the wet
blanket.
I'm the wet blanket when it comes to that kind of stuff. I don't do all that, those big motions and all that kind of, pointing and.
Nope.
All right. Well, you know what? We do not have the same number one.
Okay. Let me see. But let me see if your number one was my original number one.
Okay. My number one is also kind of shattering the norms of what you think. Also.
Okay. All right. Well, then I guess
maybe I don't know if that's going to help you.
Probably not, because
referenced in a previous episode as well.
Okay.
We're getting closer.
We're getting closer. It's getting warmer.
Okay. Yeah. In the 80s.
There you go.
So we're going back to the cluster. The cluster has been retained. You know what it is, right?
I think so.
Okay. From 1981. My number one duet of all time is Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie.
There you go.
1981 only hit number 29 in the United States. So like we said in the Queen episode, not a big song whatsoever, at least at the time. And it was one of those kind of ones that grew and kind of attained the legendary status. Yeah. Written by Queen and David Bowie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is like Clash of the Titans. This is like King Kong versus Godzilla. This is like that. This is like that type of a thing. Is these two titans coming into the studio together, especially Bowie, and from what I read, Freddie Mercury was kind of intimidated by that too. It's like David Bowie. I mean, Queen was like, oh, we're just Queen or whatever. But Bowie was Bowie for how many years in 81 already? Yeah. Was iconic already and was the forerunner of the whole glam movement that Queen kind of got in on as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you can imagine they're probably, a little trepidatious, but I mean, we're looking back as like Freddie Mercury. You're like, what do you have to worry about? like Freddie Mercury. And I think he blew him away. Honestly, I mean, didn't blow him away, but I mean, Freddie Mercury was with the scat singing. His voice, got that full throatedness that I love about his voice. It wasn't the 70s Freddie Mercury. It was that more mature, a little growly, but he still soared. It's got the iconic bass line that Vanilla Ice says he didn't steal. I changed one note, and that's Ice Baby. It's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, you paid Queen, so I think you're guilty. Yeah, Under Pressure has only grown in its stature.
Oh yeah,
and how it's become just a beloved song. But like again, at the time, it was kind of like a weird thing. This kind of song just kind of came and went. It was like Queen and David Bowie, and Queen again came off a Hot Space, so they weren't really that big. They kind of misstepped a little bit, and then Under Pressure they tacked on to the end of Hot Space, and it wasn't anything like we said in the Queen episode. Was not anything like Hot Space. Hot Space was dancey and disco-y and that kind of a thing, and that kind of groove. And Under Pressure was just this different song that they all collaborated on, all four members of Queen and David Bowie. I think Brian May pretty much said, it was mostly Freddie coming up with the lyrics and the concept, and as well as Bowie, hey, let's just go into the studio and just kind of sing lyrics and let's just see what happens. And that's how they kind of worked.
Yeah.
So it was kind of really interesting, but yeah,
Bowie was never afraid to just experiment like that, just to go in and just let loose and just, pick, let's see what we could come up with, kind of, always with, reinventing himself, that kind of thing. That was common with him. So yeah, I mean, but it's a monster. And yes, that was my original number one.
It was? See that?
It was. But I kind of thought that you'd pick it. I was like hoping that you would. So now,
there we go.
Lists, so
the circle is now complete.
That's right. But I could not, it just clicked with me. I just could not. Plus I didn't have anything from the 70s either. So it's like that would have been just another 80s song. But
for me, it was like the truest collaboration of a group.
Yeah, sure.
And then this guy this guy, and it kind of, it's not the duet, it's not the guy-girl duet that you're expecting also.
Right.
He would replicate that again a couple of years later for Live Aid with Dancing in the Street, but hadn't really done that kind of stuff. He did Fame with John Lennon, so it's kind of in the background, but
yeah,
just Under Pressure is just a really special song, just because and Freddie's vocal on it is just so superb.
It is.
He really rose to if he was nervous, I'd say he rose to the challenge, and then some.
Bowie too, though. But I think Freddie really got a lot out of Bowie on that song, because Bowie, he's not known for really belting like really like yelling like you typically. He's really low key and his voice is very particular. But I think the influence was there. I think that he kind of rubbed off on him a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, yep.
All right.
Yeah, that's a great. So what are some of your?
Let's do a recap, and then we'll do some.
Okay,
so
sure.
Recap your five through one, and I'll recap mine just for the people that are joining us late. Although I don't know how you could. It's a podcast. You can't really unless you just randomly skipped to this point. But that's fine. Then we'll give you the recap from here.
Okay. My number 5, Bring Me to Life, Amy Lee and Paul McCoy, Evanescence and Paul McCoy. Baby, You've Got What It Takes, Brooke Benton and Dinah Washington. Number 3, Leather and Lace, Stevie Nicks and Don Henley. Number 2, Don't Give Up, Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush. And Paradise by the Dashboard Light, Meatloaf and Ellen Foley from Bat Out of Hell.
You know what? When you started playing up the greatest, like karaoke, and you started playing up the 70s and the greatest thing, I thought actually you were going to say You're the One That I Want. By John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. That could be that could I considered it, but I'm like, but they're in a movie together.
Exactly.
It could have been. We could have made the case. We might have been able to break.
We could have made the case, but yeah.
So, all right, my top 5. The Closer I Get to You at number 5 with Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway. Yes, I'm Ready by Terry DeSario and KC of KC and the Sunshine Band. Number 3, Almost Paradise from the Footloose soundtrack by Ann Wilson and Mike Reno. Number 2, Somebody I Used to Know by Gautier featuring Kimbra. And then number 1, Under Pressure, Queen with David Bowie from 1981. All right. Yep. Honorable mentions?
I have
I got a few.
Go for it, because I only have one that actually almost made the list, but it's not even a song that I
got two that were on the list and got pulled off.
Okay.
Stop Dragging My Heart Around.
Yeah.
By that was almost a gimme. That was one of the first ones. I'm like, God, it's such a great song.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, you know what? I want to try harder.
Mm-hmm.
It was that one was a little too easy to go to. And I had a feeling that you were going to choose it, actually. I knew I almost knew for sure it was going to be that or Leather Lace. I was pretty sure you were going to go for this one just because of Petty, and he's great. And it's a great song.
Of course. Yeah.
And it's got the Heartbreaker sound on it. And so it's got a lot to like on it. And one of the things about Stevie Nicks back then is she was so great in supporting roles. I'm not a big Stevie Nicks lead fan. The supporting stuff that she was doing, like on Whenever I Call You Friend and this kind of stuff. And she was working with Bob Welch and Walter Egan, and she did a lot of supporting stuff. And I really like her. Like, I think that was something that was in her wheelhouse. I think she was really good at it.
Yeah. She knew exactly when to come in. She knew,
just being a part of that.
Very good harmonizer, Stevie Nicks.
Yeah.
She's got that instinct. She knows exactly what to sing, what not to sing. And her voice was great back in the day. I mean, I missed, still strong. It was still strong. Unfortunately she got those, whatever happened to her vocal cords, and, but whatever. But
she got vibrato surgery.
Yeah,
her voice went vibrato very quick, and that's what turned me off. I was like,
she had nodes on her vocal cords, and the doctor told her she shouldn't sing anymore, but she didn't listen.
Well, she ain't gonna stop doing that. All right, so what do you have? What do you have that?
Well, I almost had it on the list, but you know what? I don't even like the song anymore. It's not even. It does not hold up at all for me. And it's BB King and U2.
When Love Comes to Town.
When Love Comes to Town from Rattle and Hum.
That's a good choice.
The only reason why I would have put it on the list, because it is such an odd combo.
Yeah.
It just came out of left field. Like, Bono, for some reason, wanted to do a song with BB King. BB King came into the studio, and it didn't go as planned. Apparently, I from what I hear, it was very difficult because BB, such a renowned blues guitar player, does not know how to play chords.
Yeah.
And they were trying to teach him how to play guitar. And BB's like, I don't do chords.
I don't do that.
I don't do that. I'm BB King. You don't tell me how to, whatever.
I'm BB King, and this is Lucille.
That's right. That's right. And they were kind of and Bono was like, whoa, this isn't as easy as this isn't as going as
Yeah, he just played BB King plays those little licks and just those little phrases and everything. But
one note.
It's still a great choice. I actually tossed it around too. It was on a preliminary list.
Yeah.
From Rattle and Hum, and that's when they were searching for America and Americana, U2. So that's why they were partnering up.
It was such an odd record to begin with. It was part soundtrack, part live album. Yep. The studio tracks on it there were more soulful, like Angel in Harlem was. That's actually a much better song. I love absolutely. That one.
Desire.
Yep.
Was on there too, which I really like. Wow, that interesting choice.
Yep.
I'll give you one that didn't make the list.
Okay.
Ebony and Ivory.
Paul
McCartney and Stevie Wonder.
That's a good one.
So it's a forgotten. I think it's a forgotten classic.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks when they think McCartney and duets, they think of Michael Jackson.
See that was one that
Michael, the girl is mine, and he's like, I'm a lover, not a fighter. Ha ha ha, Paul. It's like. Michael, she said she loves me. It's like, no, not that.
Can't believe it. At the end, he's like,
and then they did say. So I was like, no.
Well, Ebony and Ivory. That one. I thought of say because
I would have had to figure out a way to mute your mic if you did.
Because we enjoyed the video. I used to like watching the video.
Yeah.
It was it's a catchy song, whatever, but. Yeah, but the other one,
Ebony
no.
and Ivory, and then there was the classic SNL skit with Joe Piscopo as Frank Sinatra and Eddie Murphy as Stevie Wonder. Go look that up. They do like a version of it. Classic.
Blind as a bat, and yeah, it's great. That's fantastic.
Good stuff.
Yep.
Ebony and Ivory. One that was on the list and then it came off. And little conflicted about it. From 1980, "Guilty" by Barbra Streisand and
Barry Gibb. Yeah,
I love Barry Gibb, and I wanted to give him the credit. He the Bee Gees wrote that song. Barry Gibb pretty much produced her album "Guilty," and it's just a great ballad. She's in great voice. She was still able to really belt. And then Barry Gibb was just right in 1980 was in the wheelhouse.
Yeah.
He was in the wheelhouse. I mean, he was, they'd come off of Spirits Having Flown and Tragedy and that soaring falsetto.
Yeah.
And then got hired to produce and work on her album "Guilty." And he did it. And that was, that hit number 3 in the United States too. So that was a near miss.
Yeah. Of course, another one,
was a close one.
Was, of course, the great, Phil Collins and Philip Bailey.
I thought that was going to be on.
Absolute classic. But
Easy Lover.
Yeah. Which they both wrote. They actually, Phil produced the album Chinese Wall for Philip Bailey of Earth, Wind and Fire, 1984. And of course, the album sounds nothing like Easy Lover. Easy Lover just kind of stands out on its own. It's more of a rockin' tune. But they both, but he actually sat down, collaborated on the song together. So it was a really good collaboration, as a whole. I mean, just the whole thing just worked. The video worked. It was fun. It was, the song is it's just a fun song. You hear it on the radio. You always tend to turn it up a little bit.
What about Separate Lives? I thought that might have had a spot too. Phil Collins and Marilyn Martin.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, no, not quite.
But
interestingly enough, he did also produce an album for Frida of ABBA, and there is a duet on there. The last track, I forget the name of the song, but it's the last track in the album is actually a duet between the two. And I don't know who wrote it. I don't think either of them wrote it, because he only contributed one song. It was a song from Face Value that he gave her because he didn't have time to write anything for her. So I don't know who exactly wrote the song, but it's a decent song. It's okay, real light and poppy, that kind of thing. But just the polar opposites, like ABBA and then Phil Collins. How did that come to be? It's just an odd pairing. But.
It's like Reese's. You got your chocolate and my peanut butter. You got your peanut butter and my chocolate.
Well, she came to him and said, "I want you to produce my first solo record because my daughter likes In the Air Tonight."
There you go.
It went on from there. He's like, "You work." Phil's like, "What do I know? You work with the two of the best producers in the business, and what can I bring to the table?" But she was
something
adamant.
Different. Yeah, something that wasn't them. I mean, that's the thing.
That's right.
They were ABBA. Bjorn Ulvaeus and Benny Andersson were ABBA. So by getting Phil Collins, you're getting something totally different, something more modern too. I mean, Phil Collins represented more of a modern sound as well. So when you're trying to get a new audience and do that, you've got it. That was really good. That was a lot of fun. And like I said, and we were disciplined. We had parameters that we stuck to. We could have made it easy. We could have went with groups where you've got multiple singers singing things. I mean, that really, would be a whole other show where we could do group duets or group vocals.
Yeah.
The Beatles would slide into that very easily.
Sure.
I mean, that would be like the whole show could be like the Beatles because, the early stuff was kind of what you would consider duets or collaborative vocals,
yes,
as it were. But no, we challenged ourselves to have people that not connected to each other come together and create something special. And my list was awesome, and your list was was just as awesome. And I'll tell you, Evanescence was a surprise for me.
Well, Gautier was a surprise for me.
See that? You went right out of the gate.
I had no idea that you liked that song so much.
Yeah, it's one of those earworms. One of those songs that it gets in your head.
That's right.
And then it's for whatever reason, just whatever caught, and then it's just like boom, it's stuck. So that's gonna do it for us. That is gonna do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. Thank you for checking us out. You can find us on social media on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast. We've got a whole bunch of other episodes, top 5, movies, music. On Facebook, we do live events. So if you want to see really how the sausage is made, literally, you can see us doing these things in live, real time, and participate as well, and be a part of the conversation, which is always fun. So look on Facebook for that. We're always doing those. Until then, this has been Dean, and we will see you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.